Hunted, the Demon's Forge has been getting a lot of media coverage lately. Whether it's been all positive or negative, there's no doubt you've heard of the game. It's a third-person hybrid shooter and action game developed by In Exile, the same company who brought you The Bard's Tale. Set in a dark fantasy realm, two mercenaries named Ilara and Kadak set off to save the damsel in distress in hopes of fattening their wallets. In typical form, their mission eventually leads to saving mankind from genocide. Gamers can control Kadak or Ilara and can switch freely back and forth from one another in predetermined switching stations. When Ilara uses her bow, the camera swoops in low behind her like Gears of War or Resident Evils 4 and 5. There's even a functional cover system, but for the most part we didn't find it all that necessary. Controlling Ilara is fun. Mixing spells into her bow usage and occasionally changing to her rather deadly looking swords when enemies get too close actually feels pretty rewarding. And we found ourselves having an awesome time with the game when the enemies began to pour in. Kadak feels less refined. When controlling Kadak, the camera takes a bird's eye view. He can use the same combat spells as Ilara, but they both have their own unique sets of magic that suit their control type. Kadak spends most of his time clunkily swinging his swords, axes, and clubs around. He can defend himself with his shield and actually can take a massive amount of damage compared to Ilara, but he doesn't have the same fluidity of melee fighting as almost every other third-person brawler that's come out this generation. After professionally slaying hordes of baddies, execution moves can be made available. The executions are on the boring side and don't really add much to the game. In fact, they seem to take away from the experience. When your character begins to move in dramatic slow motion, the rest of the world may still be moving around them at full speed. So when you wake up from the execution sequence, you might have a few baddies breathing down your neck. Overall, Hunted has an arcadey vibe to it that we truly enjoyed. Weapon racks found in the environment drop new weapons and armor that may or may not be an improvement from your current loadout. Survival often hangs in the balance as you ration out your red and blue potions. Experience gems found during battle can be spent on upgrading spells, and secret areas break up the monotony of a straightforward path. The environments add to the immersion of the story, but graphically, this isn't the most refined action game you'll find on current generation systems. There's plenty here inspired by the Lord of the Rings films. Whether or not you see that as a positive or a negative is up to you. The plot is paper thin, but it's more than enough to keep pushing you forward, and we feel that it's paced pretty well. The single-player campaign is pretty lengthy for a game of this type, but the challenge isn't there on the normal difficulty. For any type of seasoned gamer, we wholeheartedly recommend bumping up the difficulty before starting this tale. In our entire playthrough, we didn't die once. The voice acting is more than competent. You'll hear the voices of Lucy Lawless and Graham McTavish in here, but sadly, all the positive points we can dig up for this game can never compensate for the swampy melee controls, which make up for half of the game. As it stands, we don't feel Hunted the Demon's Forge is worth a full-priced purchase. We don't think the title should be written off entirely either. It's not a home run, but it's not a hot mess. There's still a dangerous shortage of semi-decent co-op games this generation, so if you want to sit down with a friend and hack and slash away at some monsters in a fantasy setting, Hunted the Demon's Forge will make a decent rental to fill the void in the summer release schedule.